Welcome to Black Sheep, where I take a look at entries in video game franchises that were poorly received or controversial among the fans. Now, I won't be dwelling on the negative aspects of these games. Instead, I'll be looking in detail at the things I like about the games, whether it was the story, gameplay, music, or anything else it contained, and see if they are really deserving of the infamy that they have. For this episode, we will be looking at Silent Hill: Homecoming. Silent Hill is one of the classic horror game franchises. The series made its debut on the original PlayStation in 1999 and has been bringing fear and scares to players ever since. Unlike a lot of horror titles, Silent Hill had players play as everyday people. These protagonists were drawn to the cursed town and would have to brave its horrors in order to survive. While the monsters of Silent Hill are indeed frightening, it is the overwhelming sense of dread and the atmospheric feel of the Silent Hill games that made them so well received. The fear in Silent Hill was more psychological, making it stand out from its horror game peers. The Silent Hill series had 4 main installments developed and produced by Konami. The internal development team then moved on to other projects, but Konami continued the series through other developers, and the first main series installment to be made by an outside studio was Silent Hill: Homecoming. Released in 2008, Silent Hill: Homecoming marked the 5th main entry into the Silent Hill series. The story of Homecoming follows Alex Shepard, a young man who is returning to his hometown of Shepherd's Glen after serving in the military. However, all is not well in this small little town. Numerous people are missing, a deep fog has rolled in, and hideous aberrations have been seen. Alex discovers that his younger brother Josh is among the missing, and sets out to find him.
I had no idea.
And if you did, would you have done anything about it?
Yeah, I would have come back for Josh, gotten him the hell out of here. God knows what kind of trouble he's in now.
Trouble? Look around you, Alex. This whole place is in trouble.
I know, I get it. But I have to find my brother. He's my responsibility. After that, I'm gone. I suggest you do the same.
During his search, Alex discovers that Shepherd's Glen has a strange connection to Silent Hill, and is pulled to the demented town several times throughout the story. We steadily learn more about Alex's past, as well as that of the town's, and while some of the characters are a bit out of place, like the goofy police officer character, the main story of Silent Hill: Homecoming is pretty engrossing. The game's climax reveals that the founders of Shepherd's Glen were former members of the Order, a hellish cult that were the antagonists in some of the previous Silent Hill games. To protect themselves from the wrath of their god, every generation of the founding families must sacrifice one of their children. Alex also learns that he was never really a soldier at all, and spent the last few months in a mental ward. An accident involving his brother Josh disrupted the sacrificial rites, bringing the horrors of Silent Hill to Shepherd's Glen.
After all I've done, you still wear my old dog tags. That must mean something.
What are you talking about? These are mine. I'm a soldier, just like you wanted.
Alex, you've been in the hospital.
I know. I was wounded in battle.
No. A mental hospital. You've been there ever since the accident.
Like previous Silent Hill games, Homecoming has multiple endings. Depending on some of the choices you make in later parts of the game will affect what ending you get. Some of them are more satisfying than others, but they all end on a rather somber tone. The story of Homecoming may not be as strong as the other Silent Hill games, but it still does have great moments. The twists and turns are engaging, and the cryptic dialogue some of the characters have fits perfectly with the Silent Hill feel. Unraveling the mystery of Shepherd's Glen in Silent Hill is probably the story's strongest point, and it's what made me want to see the game through to its completion.
Start telling me everything you know about this.
I don't know what that is.
Stop lying! I'm tired of it! I know all about Silent Hill.
You don't know anything about Silent Hill.
I know Dad went there. He went to go fight something. Did he go to get Joshua? Is that where Josh is? God damn it, tell me!
Alex, I'm so sorry.
Stop pretending you care about me! Start telling me what's going on! Josh was the only one you ever cared about. And I can help him, if you tell me the truth.
Homecoming marked a bit of a gameplay departure from the previous Silent Hill games. Gone are the fixed, claustrophobic camera angles. The camera is now solely focused on Alex, and only changes slightly when you enter combat. Speaking of combat, fighting monsters in Homecoming is also quite different from before. Entering combat allows you to attack enemies with light and heavy attacks, as well as giving you a dodge button. Depending on what creatures you're fighting, it may be better to use light attacks or the slower, heavy attacks. The dodge mechanic is actually pretty great when it works. There were times I swear my dodge timing was right, but I would still get hit, and in some of the boss fights where dodging is crucial, this can sometimes be a bit annoying. But in general, it works, and as the game went on, I found myself enjoying the combat system more and more. You actually have a variety of weapons to choose from, like knives, the classic lead pipe, and of course, firearms. Thankfully, the game keeps ammo and health sparse enough that the survival horror vibe is never really lost. I never had enough health and ammo, and that's just the way I like it. I also did like that in some situations you can actually avoid enemies altogether. Picking your fights is another strong element of survival horror games, and Homecoming does give you this choice in some of its encounters. Along with the deformed monstrosities, the game also contains several horrifying boss fights. Most of them have easy patterns, but they do put up enough of a fight to make them challenging. My personal favorite boss of the game was the grotesque doll Scarlet. The design and music definitely made it one of the high points of the game. A lot of visually stunning games came out in 2008, and while Homecoming's graphics aren't the greatest, there are some fantastic visual touches. I particularly like the enemies' cuts appearing as you damage them, and the dark world transitions. The soundtrack, however, is superb. Series composer Akira Yomiyaka returns and brings his signature ambient and industrial music to the game. Quieter pieces like Witchcraft have beautiful piano bits in them, and more frightening tracks like Scarlet make the game's atmosphere all the more scary. Despite all the things that Silent Hill Homecoming does well, it is generally considered the weakest game in the series. Some fans complain that monsters like Pyramid Head shouldn't be in the story due to the series' lore. Also, the story does sometimes have a campy horror film vibe, with stuff like the goofy cop. This combined with the fact that many elements of the game were changed from previous installments, understandably upsetted many fans. Even with its flaws, I rather liked Silent Hill Homecoming. The story had me hooked the whole way through, and once I warmed up to the combat mechanics, I found the gameplay to be quite good as well. The puzzles are pretty good too, even if there is one too many sliding puzzles for my taste, but that's mostly because I'm terrible at those. The game emulates the best part of the previous Silent Hill games, while also trying out new elements. This trend would continue for the next several entries of the franchise. The general opinion of the series was that it hadn't returned to the same heights of the earlier games. That perception changed when PT was unveiled. PT, aka Playable Teaser, was actually a secret demo for a new game called Silent Hills. It had big names attached to it, fantastic production values, and most of all, scares. PT was a standout moment in the horror genre. Sadly, Silent Hills was unceremoniously cancelled a few months later. Konami had a falling out with the lead director and pulled the plug on the project, much to the disappointment of gamers everywhere. At the moment, it would appear Konami has no interest in continuing the series. With all this bad news, I wouldn't blame you for being upset about the future of the franchise. I have hope, however, that we will see another installment in the horror series. Whether it's through Konami or some other studio, this is one franchise that needs to return because the unique and scary world of Silent Hill is too good of a series to give up on. So in conclusion, Silent Hill Homecoming is a fun entry into the survival horror series. It may lack certain elements from the other games, but I feel that it is an entry that stands on its own and is well worth playing. Because when it comes to horror games, there's no home like Silent Hill. Thank you for watching this episode of Black Sheep. What are your thoughts on Silent Hill Homecoming? Any other Black Sheep games you want me to take a look at? Feel free to share in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to leave a like. Until next time, keep having great adventures, everyone.